Expert Authority World, we are in for a treat today. I'm going to bring up Matt Travis, a mompreneur mindset mentor. And he's going to be sharing with us the ways you can hack your subconscious to have a more successful life and business. I'm super excited to dive in with him right after we thank our sponsor. Every business needs a book, including yours. Visit freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com today to learn the 7 steps to publish and promote your nonfiction lead and profit-generating business book in 8 weeks. Once again, that's freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Matt Travis with Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Matt Travis. Matt, how are you feeling today?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Mario.
Oh, it is my pleasure. I am excited to hear what you have to say because I see that you work with mompreneurs, but at the same time, you could apply what you're teaching to anyone that wants to build a business. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
So why is the subconscious so important?
It controls 95% of your life. So from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, the show is really run by your subconscious. And I had a lot that happened in my life that led me to understand that I'm excited to share with everybody today.
What best I can tell, you're not a mom. How
You are.
So explain this to me because I find it fascinating and how can you be teaching moms if you're not a mom?
Yeah. When I was running my fitness facility for 6 years, I just fell in love with helping moms. Like we had so many moms at our fitness facility, and I just fell in love with the ripple effect getting mom healthy and happy had, right? Like when you get a mom healthy and happy, the whole family starts to feel the effects, and it really has an amazing ripple effect. And then when I closed that and I started this online piece, I kept going, helping moms get healthy and happy. And we had just so many mom entrepreneurs join our program that I said, why wouldn't I share, the hundreds of thousands of dollars of information that I've invested into learning how to build a business and how to transform that. So giving them both the health and well-being piece with the business piece, creating this ultimate trifecta.
Now, what else happened during that time that led you to this?
What led me to close my fitness facility?
Well, what were you doing simultaneously, I guess I should ask.
Yeah, so I was a full-time teacher. So I was teaching from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., then driving from there and coaching from 3:30 to 8 p.m. And I feel like I got a kind of a glimpse of what moms do on a regular basis. Like they're just amazing. I mean, they work many of them work a full-time job, and then being a mom is a full-time job as well. And so many of these amazing women that I've worked with, a lot of what I do with them is really help them understand how important it is to put themselves first, which can be tricky, especially if you subconsciously don't feel like that's something that you do, or that's not a habit that you have at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a lot about getting into the deeper level of how to actually help yourself so that you can do more of what you love. Usually that's helping their family and their kids and everybody around them.
Well, I'm glad that you're doing it, and I was somewhat teasing and playing devil's advocate because I'm sure it's not the first time you've heard someone say, "Well, how can a man be a teach how to be a mom?" But I knew with your backstory, if you're doing the same things, you get the experience of while it might not be 100%, you get the experience of juggling all that around. How do I pull this off? How do it just being I guess I could sum it up being overly tired and feeling underappreciated, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've had dads come through our program, and it's interesting. Like, it's not that we don't want them to come in. It's just out of the hundreds of moms we've had in the program, we probably had about maybe 10 dads. So it just made sense that we really pushed into that and really focused on these amazing moms.
Why would you? Why would you say most? Why don't you think more men are trying to do something like this or coming through? I mean, you're
I don't
saying
know.
hundreds versus 10. So even if it's you literally have only helped 100 people, which I know isn't the case, that's still 10%. And if
Yeah.
you're past 200, 300, it goes down to 5%, 2.5, 2%.
Yeah, I've thought about that at a great length. That's an awesome question. I've thought about it a lot, and it's interesting because even in the programs that I'm in, like the mindset and the personal and professional development programs, I find it's a lot more women than it is men. And I don't know what that's all about. I I feel like specifically in my program, there's a lot of times in which vulnerability is needed. Like, you really need to step into a vulnerable place to be able to actually have the subconscious transformational change that we need to have. I find I have a lot more men doing like one-to-one coaching with me, and maybe it's just, you know they don't feel necessarily comfortable being open and honest about challenges or struggles in a group setting. I don't know. It's very interesting though. As
I
a
think
as
you're
a
spot
therapist,
on.
it's very,
I would have to
yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
I've always
Yeah.
wondered about that too, about certain things, and I have my I don't want to say suspicions. I mean, when you do it hundreds and thousands of times, it's not really suspicions; it's data. Uh,
Sure.
so there's all that to consider. So one thing I wanted to ask you about how that was the people coming through. Yeah, there's the vulnerabilities. Yeah, you have these different things you have to consider. But what are the benefits of it once someone does decide to open up and address some of these issues and fix the subconscious?
It's been hands down the number one tool that's helped to have the biggest breakthroughs, whether you are trying to improve your health, your relationships, your money, your business, you name it. Using rapid transformation therapy in my business has skyrocketed. I mean, 10x, 20x the results that people get, because we're all walking around with these beliefs and habits that we really picked up over however many years we've been here, right? So a lot of these things have been indoctrinated to us, and we aren't even conscious of the effect and the ripple effect that some of the stuff that happened when we were children has on us now. Right. We wonder why we can make money but can't keep it. We wonder why we can, lose weight and get healthy, but we end up right back where we came from. We wonder why we start building this business and then we sabotage ourselves. Right. And we're like, why is this happening? And what I'm able to do is I'm able to help people answer that question and really understand at a deeper level where this all came from, what the meanings and feelings you have around it are, repattern it and reprogram it, and really give you the transformational tools to have that subconscious shift, so you don't have to live in that space anymore, and you are able to walk away with a new set of a new identity, really.
How do you go about this? And I know it's a loaded question because I'm sure it's something you just don't do in one phone call, one session, one in person. I know it takes time, but I do want to ask, what are the steps needed to go through this, have the breakthrough, and what is a typical time you would say it takes to see the transformation and then have it get rooted and become a habit?
Yeah, let's unpack all that. So when we think about an individual, when they first come to me, my whole job is to ask them good questions and really understand and listen to them and really understand what they're coming to the table with, what they're showing up with, so that I can make a determination of whether I can help this person, right? Because my biggest thing is that I won't bring people on that I can't guarantee I can help, right? Like I want to ensure that when you are working with me, that we can get the best results for you possible, and more importantly, keep those results, right? So, because like you said, it's all about getting that root, the root structure set up so that it sticks forever. I mean, that's my number one passion, is to help people get results and keep them forever. So when somebody comes to me, around the time frame it takes them, it really depends on the thing the result they're looking to have, where their starting line is, like where their starting point is, and how much they're ready and willing to do. Like a lot of what I explain to people is I help people align their mind with the plan that they design. So if we are trying to, like, so many people pick a diet or pick a business strategy or pick, they're picking these strategies and these things, and their mind, their beliefs, their identity, their values, their habits isn't necessarily in alignment with those things. And that's why it doesn't stick. So during our time together, it might take 6 months, it might take 12 months. But the coolest thing is we can do a one-off rapid transformation therapy session and get massive shifts in hours. So I've had clients transform overnight, and I've had clients, it takes some time. I think of it like the layers of an artichoke, right? You have to peel them back. You've got to
Sounds
peel them
better
back.
than
You
an
got to
onion.
peel them back. It does. I used to say onion, but I was like, at the bottom of the artichoke is the heart, right? So I started to be like, that sounds much nicer.
It
So
does.
the layers of the artichoke, and you're really peeling them back, and every time you peel it back, I mean, you got to think of it like it's a layer that hasn't been out in the open for a while. So some people really have to learn how to balance and know what it feels like to be out there and be vulnerable. But it's really me giving them the tools to feel confident while they're evolving subconsciously and consciously.
Yeah. And I'm glad you're doing it. And I brought it up because there's stuff I've done in the past for leadership training. And I mean, it was branded as leadership training, but uh, there's that point where you're here and you go, I want to improve.
Yeah.
And then you need to do it. You have the breakdown to have the breakthrough, and that's the transformation. But then there's like, okay, I am now looking at the world completely different than I ever have. And like you said, it takes some time, like learning to walk. You don't just start running right away doing backflips and parkour. It's like, okay,
Totally.
cool, let's get used to this. Now what? Now what? And there's a point where, and then there's that period of time. So I'm happy to hear you can have the rapid transformation in a couple of hours or a day. Talk about that more. What is rapid transformation therapy?
Yeah, it's a revolutionary form of therapy created by a woman named Marissa Peer, who is one of the top uh, psychologists in the UK. And she just saw a need to have a much quicker form of therapy, right? So like there's so many types of therapy out there. You can go and do talk therapy, and that has its place. There's many different hypnotherapy certifications out there. The reason I ultimately went with this was because I love how she took so many different kinds. I mean, she takes dialectical behavioral therapy. She takes cognitive CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. She takes neuro-linguistic programming and NLP. And she just brought all these amazing therapies together, and you're able to deliver them in a state of hypnosis, which just creates this, what she coins as rapid transformation. And it is it's fascinating because I of course tested it out before I ever got trained, and it was life altering. Like it changed things super fast, and it brought to light things I had no clue. And then when I got into it, I dived right in. I've done 200 plus sessions now, but the most interesting thing to me is that people go in thinking they know what where it all started, or what the thing is that's stopping them or slowing them down, or standing in their way. And then they have this massive aha when they're in there, because we do go into regressions. We get a chance to, and a regression is not reliving the moment in time. It's a chance for them to actually just see the scene in their life, and for us to kind of separate the feelings from the scene and the meanings that they created within that scene in that moment in time. Because it's kind of like if you and I went to, if we went to a summit together and I was like, wow, this summit was awesome, and you were like, this summit was horrible, right? We both have a different perception and interpretation of what it was, right? So it's I try to explain to people, it's not the scene, it's not the moment that is really the thing. It's the meanings and the feelings that we put to the scene. It's the feelings that we have, and then the meanings that we create, that create our beliefs, and that create our habits and our subconscious saboteurs and our coping mechanisms and all these things. So it's really trying to peel back all of those layers and understand it, of the artichoke, right? And understand it. And when you start to understand where this stuff comes from, you just start to feel more empowered, that you're like, I know where this came from. I know why this is the way it is. And I no longer have to keep believing this because it's not serving me anymore. And that frees you up to actually start to repattern the stories that you tell yourself, and change your beliefs and change your habits, and shift those to a more positive way of thinking and believing. And then, I mean, you create a new identity throughout that, whole new person, which is super cool. But like you said, you do have to learn to walk in that new identity, for sure.
I mean, this has always been fascinating to me, but I love what you're sharing because I've never heard it this way before. And with
Yeah.
this type of therapy, ultimately, I think giving people transformations, however people do it, I personally do it with business book publishing, and it's like take extracting your expertise and going, here's something that'll live on past you. You can use it
Yeah.
to serve more people. And it's like, that's a transformation. People who do graphic design, or maybe it's chiropractic or attorneys. It's like, you can always help people if you have the heart, I believe. But
Yeah.
you're really diving deep with this of the subconscious. So I want to go back on a few things because you mentioned NLP, and I was smiling because I'm most familiar with that. You said
Yeah.
something about dielectric.
Dialectical behavioral therapy. So yeah, there's a lot of pieces to this. And you know what it was for me? And I love that you brought this up, because for me, it started back in the fitness facility. Like it started with why do people start going and exercising, right? They want to have a transformational change in their body. And I started to wonder, like, why do people start going to the gym and then stop? Why do they uh why do they not go at all, right? Or why, like I started thinking about
What
all
are
of the
the
things.
answers? I'd love to know those too.
Well, it's really the thing is, I'll explain it this way, and this will make sense to you. In Detroit, Michigan, they have pretty crazy snow in Detroit at some point, correct?
Whoop.
Yep. So the same in Boston, right? So uh, have you ever seen what we would call the crazy people going for a run in these storms, right? And you're like, and most people look at those people, they're like, what is wrong? Like, why are they doing that? And if you think about it from their perspective, they never thought about not doing it. So it comes down to the identity level, right? They weren't like, oh, there's a storm. They were like, crap, there's a storm. I'm still running, right? Because it's who they are. So really, this is all about creating an identity. Like for those people that go and are consistent with going to the gym and exercising, they have a belief that exercise is a non-negotiable. They have a belief that they are a person who exercises or an athlete or whatever, right? They have this subconscious identity that that's just who they are. They never think to not do it, right? So it just changes things. And like that was the way that happened over and over again for me. Like I was like, all right, fitness is going to be the thing. I'm going to open a fitness facility. I'm going to transform these people's lives and it's going to change their life forever. And I saw so many people that I helped massively, but their sustainability, the sustainable long-term change didn't necessarily come with that. And it bothered me. Like I was like, I want these people's lives to like, I want it to run on forever. Like I want them to walk away and be like, that was the last thing I needed in this puzzle, right? So then I was like, oh, it must be nutrition. I got to get all these nutrition certifications. You know, fitness isn't the thing. Maybe it's what they're eating, right? So I got all my nutrition certs. That didn't, it helped. It totally helps. And nutrition is actually the main part of overall body transformation. Exercise is not the biggest thing when it comes to that, is really what I learned from that. But it didn't move the needle in the way that I wanted it to from a sustainable long-term transformation. So then I was like, this is mindset. It's got to be some kind of mindset. I don't know what, right? But of course, you jump into the things that are on the forefront, right? I did the big guys programs. I did all Tony Robbins stuff. I jumped in all Jim Rohn stuff, and I was doing all of these mindset programs and certifications, and it was fantastic. And I was like, this is really amazing. And then I was applying it to my clients, and I was watching really good transformations happening, but still the sticking of it, the maintenance of it wasn't up to the level that I wanted it to be. And that is when I just kept going down that rabbit hole, and I, fell onto Marissa Peer, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, all of these guys that were talking about the subconscious, and my mind was blown. It was like the key to unlock the door for me was like right there. Because I always wished I was like, whenever I'd work with a client, I was always like, I would love to know how they got this belief, or how they got here. Like, why do they keep sabotaging themselves? Like, why
they keep sabotaging themselves? And you mentioned something earlier, since we're talking about business and entrepreneurship, you mentioned some people have a hard time getting money, and some people have a hard time keeping it.
Absolutely.
What's the difference?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. There's a lot of people that are really good at making money, but they're either, when it's coming in, this podcast could be really long if we if we go down this rabbit hole.
I want I always
no, this is
rule
awesome.
I ever tell anyone is I just want you to be honest, and I always try to pull the truth as much as possible.
Yeah,
for
totally.
the audience, because it's like I've listened to stuff or read a book, and it's like, wow, this is really good, and it's like something goes in your mind, and I have the benefit of going, yeah, why don't we go back to that thing, the dielectric, and you're like, oh, okay, here and here, because it's like, this is what I'm thinking real time. So
yeah. So let's talk about getting money and keeping money, right? So a lot of people that start in the entrepreneurial world, they don't necessarily, I know for me and most of the entrepreneurs I've worked with, they don't start with a business background, right? They just kind of know they really love helping people, and they were like, I want to build a business around that. That's literally what happened to me. And I got in and I opened my gym, and I had like 50 clients. And then I realized, wow, I don't really actually know how to get clients. Like, I don't know how to get leads and all these things. And that scared the crap out of me. So I realized, like, I was like, I don't actually know how to make money like this. So I joined an amazing mastermind out in California. And it changed my life. So I really started to understand how to sell and how to create influence and how to align with people. And like I said, a lot of it is asking good questions and listening, right? So that's part of the attracting money piece, right? But some people have a subconscious belief that they can't make money, that it's just not in the cards for them. And many of them, and I mean, you may have had things that your parents have told you, right? Like money, like we hear all this stuff. Money doesn't grow on trees, and you weren't born under the $1 million star, and like we hear
Who do
this
you
stuff
think
when
I
we're
am, Rockefeller?
exactly. So it's like they these things are subconsciously embedded as children from what we see and what we hear about money and our ability to make money, right? Your parents might leave you with this belief like, well, you have to work like one of the ones I got. So I've done a lot of work on my money blocks, but one of the ones I got was you have to work really, really, really hard to make money. I watched my father, who's one of the hardest working men I've ever seen, work insane hours. And that created this belief that, you have to work really, really hard to make money, which isn't true. It's just a subconscious belief that you have to do all of this crazy stuff and, sell your soul to have this come to fruition, when it's just not true. So it's those underlying beliefs that create that. And then when it comes to the keeping of the money, this can be something where it's interesting. I've done so many with people around this. And a lot of times when it comes to the keeping of the money, it is usually a bookkeeping issue, right? But it's also this subconscious issue around their ability to, a lot of times math class comes up in their stuff, which is really interesting. Sometimes it's the fact that they had parents that would be making all this money but spending it frivolously, right? So it really tends to be environmentally indoctrinated at a subconscious level, on both angles. And for entrepreneurs, it can be really frustrating because you're like making this money, but you can't keep it, or you're having trouble making it, right? You can keep it, but you're having trouble making it. So it's when you get to understand, number one, where that came from for you. And then number two, start creating some new meanings and beliefs around those moments in time, and help. It's really kind of like proving your past self wrong, that you don't need to believe that anymore. Like it may have served you when you were a child. Like it may have been something that made sense then, but as an adult, we can't keep going like this, because you're going to end up in the poorhouse, and you're not going to make the dream that you have come to fruition, right? Because you have this block that you didn't know you had.
So this is fantastic, and there's like three rabbit holes I want to keep going down. So I'm gonna
Totally.
just pick one and say, how do you identify the block if you don't know what it is?
So that is the biggest thing. And I think that's what drives people nuts, because they think they'll be able to outthink it.
And
They're
you
like,
can't.
and you can't, right? And I thought I could too. Like I was
You can't
totally
see in
like,
your own blind spot.
exactly.
I've heard many times, oh, I don't need that coaching, I don't need that training, I don't need that whatever. And a lot of times it's like the same people on the hamster wheel doing the same stuff over and over, and it's like, you've been trying for like 2 decades. Good for you for the determination, but at some point, I remember one year like decades ago, it was right when I was starting business. I had no clue what I was doing. And when you were like, yeah, I just wanted to help people and do business, I was going to say, yeah, and not work a job or have a boss. I was like, yeah, pretty much spot on. But the one year, it's like I went full time in '08.
Yeah.
And people go, "Oh wow, it must have been so cool to go into business." Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was like, "This is the third time I tried doing it," and I was like, "What the
Yeah.
hell is going on?" And that year, I had no like coaching. I was pretty young. I was like, "There's no mastermind coaching, all this stuff
Yeah.
that's like normal now." I go, "You know what? I'm gonna do the exact opposite of what I did last year." Now, I think this is going to be better in some regards. It might slow me down in others, but I think overall I'm going to beat the spread because clearly this hasn't worked the way I wanted it to. I was always making progress, but it wasn't like astronomical. And I just literally was like, "Hey, do you want to go to that thing?" And I'm thinking, "No, not really." Absolutely. What time is it? You know what I mean? It was just like I
Yeah.
need to go so countercultural that I just decide, I can decide after, was it worth it or not? I don't need to keep doing the pattern. And that was just my own intuition going, do something different. Don't do another year of the same. And then the other thing I fixed was more of a spiritual basis with tithing and offering. And one of the books I highly recommend, Trust God for Your Finances. So I loosened up in that area, and it was like, that was very freeing too, because it's like, oh, I can make as much as I want, but it's not mine to begin with. There's no point in
Yeah.
hoarding it and hanging on to it. And I did subsequent stuff in the years after, but I've never gone back since '08. And I'm just like, I wish it didn't take the first 6 years to get to that point. But at the same time, I look back and go, if I had some overnight success that I didn't go through the same stuff that really everyone does, you can't sit here and give a great interview or host or inspire, because it's like, oh,
Totally.
what's your story? Well, I was born into it. I had everything handed to me. I learned management when I was 9, started my first company when I was 10. I was 12. I had a late start. And, I've been making millions since I'm 14.
Yeah.
So few can relate to that, because my heart was always,
Totally.
I want to help people like you. And it's
Yeah.
like, where did you start? Well, we had a lot of money, but we never kept it because they were spending it. We had very little, and that drove, I think there's more people that grew up with close to nothing who said, I'm going to do everything it takes to get out of it.
Totally. Totally. And I think that lends it to your story as well. It's like you did the thing that wasn't working for 6 years, and you knew there was a blind spot there. Like we call it the stachoma, right? It's like, it's the same thing as when your parents are like, "Hey, can you go get me the salt shaker?" And you're looking in the cabinet and you're like, "I don't see it. I can't see it. I don't know where it is. I can't see it. I can't see it." And they come around and grab it right in front of your face, right? And you're
And
like,
thanks for opening the door.
yeah. Right. But it's just, we can't see what we can't see. But you had this intuition to know that what you had been doing up until that point, right, which was familiar, predictable, it was certain, right? But you were like, this isn't what's going to move the needle for me. So you changed. And people love what's familiar, certain, and predictable. And if you don't change, you're going to keep getting the same results you've always gotten. So that is why you're successful, right? So it's, you have to push.
I appreciate that. It's not always the easiest thing, but and for the
Totally.
record, I didn't grow up completely poor, but it wasn't like the typical conversations were like, "Oh, so what do we do with this 8 million in one of our assets?" It was
Yeah.
upper middle class, and it was not horrible, but I wasn't taking private planes when I was 6 everywhere,
No, most
unfortunately.
of us not, right?
But I joke and say unfortunately, but I'm really thankful for mom and dad and my family, because I saw examples from and this was leads to the other question when you're saying you you do more people learn by seeing or by hearing, because there's always these examples of, clearly there's successful people. It's like kind of like going to the zoo. It's like, wow, you know, there's a lot of animals I've personally never seen, or areas I've never traveled to yet. But I've seen them so much, it's like, yeah, they exist. But if you really
Yeah.
think about the scientific of it, it's like, based on what you saw an image that could have been photoshopped, but you see it so much. Like, I think I've seen a polar bear. I'm sure I've seen a polar bear. But a dinosaur, let's say, it's like there's bones, there's this, there's proof, allegedly. But you know what I mean? It's like you see something enough, that
Yeah.
familiarity, you just assume it's real. So it's like you see these people who are ultra successful and you go, they exist.
Yeah.
But if you don't see it regularly, is that why most people have a problem? Or is it because what they hear is countercultural, even if you believe it?
I, I think it's all of it, all of the
Okay,
above,
awesome.
right? Like if you really think about, and I talk to this with my clients all the time, I'm like, the environment that you create for yourself is so important. And when I say environment, I mean like everything from what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're smelling, what you're like, all of the things, right? So, like, if you're a person that watches the news on a regular basis, you're probably going to be a little, exactly, you're probably going to be living in a state of edginess and fear and anxiety a lot of the times because they know that those channels know exactly how to
Hit the
play
dopamine.
on, yeah, and then they play on your natural instincts as a human being to always focus on fear, right? So that you stay safe and you don't get hurt and blah 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 blah, right? But like if you're growing up in poverty and that's all you see, it's hard to think that there's any other option, right?
For
It's
you.
hard to, for you, exactly. So it's hard to see like, oh, well, like I'll never have this, but yet you do see it. You see people making it, making massive amounts of money out of nothing. And there's always that thing where you look at, like I always love listening to Kevin Hart talk about this because he talks about how he really came from nothing, and he had to work really hard and to get to that point, right? So like coming back to what I said, like that was my father. He had to work really hard, but if you really think about it, how many people do you know that work really hard and still aren't making any money and still aren't, financially stable? So hard work isn't necessarily what produces money. It's the way that it's your identity, it's your being that's going to allow you to step into something, because if you're working really hard 14-hour days of manual labor, that's not going to produce the same result as somebody who's doing, something that's going to be more lucrative in the long run, right?
Absolutely. I agree 100%. If there's anyone listening going, okay, sold. Now what? What would you recommend to them?
Yeah, you know, the first thing, like the first step I always say to everybody when they're trying to go on this journey of understanding themselves at a deeper level is, and this is my favorite first starting point, is start capturing in a journal the thoughts you think to yourself every day, right? A lot of us think that that sounds weird, but what I found is that by capturing all the stuff that my mind tells me, because you are not your mind, folks, just so you know, you are, and if someone's like, what do you mean? Well, think about it. You wake up and you listen to this voice tell you a bunch of crap. A lot of the times it's negative limiting beliefs, right? And if you're the person listening, then you can't be the person talking, right? So it's your mind is selling you all of this stuff, right? And a sale known is a sale blown. So you need to figure out how it's selling you. You need to figure out how your mind is selling you on sabotaging yourself. That's step one. So it's really understanding, what am I saying to myself each and every day? Is it helping me or is it hurting me? Because there's really only two things you can choose. That's it. And you can't control. Like a lot of people are like, well, you can control these two things. You can't control your thoughts, because if you could, you would never think a negative thought. They just come in. You may have noticed, folks, they just start flowing in, right? You
Now, can
can,
you have triggers that make you go on a different path? Because there's times you can be having a good day and it's like, I'm having a good day,
oh,
and then someone
absolutely.
cuts you off or whatever, and then it's like, eh. And
Yeah.
you just go down this rabbit trail. Conversely, you can be having a bad day and someone smiles or does something nice. So, where does it stem from, and how do you get away from the negative?
Yeah. So, like I said, you can choose your actions and you can choose your thoughts. So, what happens, like you said, a lot of people let their circumstances dictate the way that they show up in the world. So, for example, you're driving to work, you get cut off, and your coffee spills on the floor. And that like throws you into a spiral for the rest of the day, right? Because you let that moment in time um, create this whole different triggering, and you know start making up stories about what how that what I should have done, and how I what I should have beeped the horn and got out of the car, right? You get all bent out of shape and you create this like bigger, if you've ever gotten in a fight with somebody, folks, like, and you leave the person and then you start thinking, oh, I should have said this and I should have said that, right? That's your mind just creating up stories and creating up like all of this extra stuff that isn't really real. It's kind of like we need to stop. We judge everything, right? We judge ourselves, we judge others, and we judge our circumstances. So when you stop doing that, and that's what I do with people in my program, I help them learn how to let go of the judge and be more discerning, and uh, start to really step into a more conscious way of approaching the world, and not letting circumstances dictate the way that you're feeling and being, right? Because if you think about it, it works like this. It's like you have this thought, right? And this thought creates this feeling, and this feeling creates this vibration and frequency. And you therefore, if you have this bad feeling and these bad thoughts, a lot of times you're either not going to take an action, right? Or you're going to take an action that isn't necessarily effective for you. And then you're going to get some kind of result, and it's going to feed back into your identity and your who you are. And then it comes back around again in a circle. And here's a perfect example. Let's say you're in business, right? And you're like, oh, I didn't, the first sales call you have of the day, it doesn't go your way. So you feel, if you're letting the circumstances dictate how you feel bad. And then you're like, oh, so you may start sabotaging yourself through procrastination, connecting with more people, right? Maybe not, canceling some of your sales calls, or maybe not showing up to those other sales calls that you have in your best, most authentic way, right? And then, of course, that creates that ripple effect of no sale, no sale, no sale, no sale. And then it feeds back into the identity like, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe this isn't for me, right? And then it feeds back into more of the stories like, oh, maybe, I'm a wannabe-preneur, right? Like, and it's just, this negativity,
The
it
imposter
breeds,
syndrome.
right? Imposter syndrome, totally. And imposter syndrome is one that I do all the time with people, because there's this underlining belief, right? It's this enoughness piece. So the enoughness kind of falls into these two categories, right? One is self-love and self-worth, and another is, confidence and capability. Am I capable of making this business work and stepping into this, and making a full-time living out of this? And, is this for me? Right. So a lot of times we are our own worst enemy. So don't believe everything you think. That's one of the biggest takeaways.
That is so powerful. Everything you've been saying is gold, and I know I could ask you 20 more questions and you would answer them flawlessly. But I do want to ask about the biggest transformation you've been able to. This is hilarious. I am smiling. I'm going to say I'm smirking, but I'm smiling because this is part of, you know, I I ask this frequently. What is the biggest
Yeah.
transformation you've been able to give to a client? This whole time we're talking about transformations, I've heard no less than 2 dozen of them already. But out
Yeah.
of the hundreds of people you've helped, um, this is surreal because it's like it's your whole business.
Yeah.
Who is the biggest transformation? What is the biggest transformation you've been able to give someone?
That's the hardest question. And the reason it's
Oh
the
no, I got
hardest.
plenty more. Don't worry. This is one of the fun ones because it's like you get to illustrate the before and after. You know, Susie or John was in this point, and now, you know, they
Yeah,
broke the family cycle of poverty. I mean, that's huge. I've had people say stuff like that. It's like that's not like, oh, we
totally.
had a good year. That's like you're ripple affecting generations.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like there's just been so many. And it's like when I think of a lot of the clients that come to work with me that have the biggest transformations, it's really the client that comes to me and is like, I want to lose weight, right? They come to me for something that they think they want. They want this external thing to happen. And we do that, right? We can help people lose weight. We can, I've helped people that were like struggling for years, not getting above six figures in their business. And then we help them shift that and it blows their mind that they can do that. Um, but yeah, I had this one client, she came to me for weight release and, um, she released 80 pounds. But the bigger thing that I loved about working with her, and she will attest to this, like the 80 pounds was bonus. It was the fact that she ended up leaving a job that she really didn't like being in, or she liked it, but she wasn't making the money that she wanted. It wasn't really where she needed to
Hmm.
be. And she ended up transitioning into a brand new career, her dream job, and making more money and just being happier, right? Like the
So
thing that I
did that
hear.
happen and then the weight loss, or did the weight loss happen and then that happen? Because I
So it's
believe there's a correlation, and I want you to
yeah,
expand on that. But what
yeah.
was the order?
Yeah, time and time again, it's so funny because if you talk to marketers, they're like, you can't sell confidence because it's hard to grasp what that is, right? But I'll tell you, um, when you can help an entrepreneur understand what their niche is and and who they're supposed to serve and their messaging, and if you can help somebody really learn exactly how to release all the weight and have that massive confidence around how to release all the pounds, it just creates like I said at the beginning with moms, it's like it creates this ripple effect and it creates this vibration and energy that the person has and they just show up more confidently in their life and their kids start picking up on it, right? And their spouses start picking up on it, and everybody that they serve starts picking up on it, whether they're a business owner or not, right? It's those, I call it stacking wins, right? And it's helping the people because when they come to me, I'm like, we need to do some journaling together because a lot of people will want this one specific result. They're like, this is what has to happen. And what happens is they miss all of this magic that's happening every single day along the way. They're missing it because a lot of what I do is help point out all these mini wins that they're having along the way. And
So
they
it's like you're
stack these.
operating with blinders where you're so focused on I need to get to
Yep,
the end result, you miss everything around you.
absolutely. And when you start thinking like this and you start stacking these wins and you can even shift the things that you see as negative and you start to give them a different perspective and see how that almost everything that I've ever had happen in my life that was horrible has become a gift, right? Being a
Opportunities to
person,
overcome is what I call them.
totally, yes. Character building days, right? Like, a lot of people are like, they're bad days. They're character building days. It's how are you showing up
They're
when
not fun,
things
but
are
it's
going
the
bad?
time where you go, am I going to continue? Am I worth it? Are you worth it? Is my mission worth it? And it's,
Yes.
cuz you can always give up. I don't recommend doing it today. Give it a day.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it is the it's those moments and those times that build that armor. And you look back and you're like, that moment in time. I mean, for me personally, like when I was running my fitness facility, I had one of those days. And if I hadn't had that day, which was a horrible day, and it ultimately led to me closing my fitness facility. Like me and my wife, we had our second miscarriage. My head coach at my fitness facility quit via text. And I had to go deal with business. And like, it opened my eyes that day that like, this is not living. I can't do this anymore. So it was one of the worst days, but yet if I never had that day, I wouldn't be here now. I wouldn't have gone into the subconscious. I wouldn't have, there's so many things. So who knows what's good or bad? It's being open to another perspective and knowing that, there's so much amazing things happening every day, folks. And it's capturing those wins and stacking those wins and changing perspective and changing interpretation. And that's how we change your life.
Wow. So impactful. And I do want to say sorry for your loss, but at the same time, like you just said,
it's
so
tricky.
unfortunate.
It is. And we mourn that, right? And yet we have a 3-year-old, and our 3-year-old wouldn't be here if that it's always that it's so tricky because it's like, I can't imagine him not being here. Right. He's like one of the lights of my life. And yet 2 horrible circumstances had to occur in order for that to happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's many layers to this, right?
Well, thank you for sharing so much and being so vulnerable. I love everything you're sharing. I am going to ask you 2 more questions. One, well, before we thank our sponsor, one of them is yellow or black.
I'm going to go yellow.
That was my awesome segue. We're all deep in thought here. I'm like, hey, look, I'm going to spin a wheel. Like, yellow. So, this is the wheel of whatever. And it's basically, remember when I said running on that hamster wheel?
Yeah.
What do you think this is made with?
It's totally a hamster wheel.
I painted it somewhere like 100, 200 episodes ago. It's actually, I filmed the whole thing because it's an interesting through line, but it basically is I get to ask you whatever I want.
Awesome.
Not like I can't do that the whole rest of the show, but I don't know. That just adds some color to it and some humor. So, do you want to, I would say keep it lighthearted, but we really haven't. So, my question for you would be, where do you see yourself in business in 10 years compared to where you are now?
I see.
Is that enough of a stretch, or is there something I don't know about because we just recently got connected? What is a stretch for you? Because we're talking about the subconscious, and you're clearly this is flawless and effortlessly for you. What is like your big arching? This is a big goal, regardless if it's 5 years, 10, or 20.
Yeah, like I want to have it where anybody that has I want everybody to have the ability to access this type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think this is something that could be used in so many ways in schools and so just in so many different
industries and applications for sure.
Totally. And I think one of the things that, well, I know one of my dharmas and my purposes on this planet is to really help people shift their self-sabotage, right? So I want to really keep this going and having this build in my business and evolve to a place where, we're helping bigger companies and bigger groups, right? That can actually create that more ripple. Yeah. Like more to create more of that ripple effect. Cause like I said, like what drew me to helping moms in the first place was just the ripple effect of helping that person, like what that did. And I think I just love the idea of if you can help one person and have that person make this massive impact on all of these other people, right? Like that's how we change the world. So I would love to just really find those people, those change makers, and those people that are trying to change the world as well. I want to help them so that we can make the biggest impact on this planet possible. Yeah, to take it to the next level for humanity.
5 years, 10 or 20?
That, you know what? I will say 10 years, but I also like to always leave it open to the universe. I'll be good in 5 years. If the universe is ready, I'm ready.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Did have to put that sense of urgency on it, though.
Oh, absolutely.
We are going to thank our sponsor and come back for the imperfect action round. You've heard me say every business needs a book, including yours. And it's true. And that's why you should visit freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com today to learn the 7 steps to publish and promote your nonfiction lead and profit generating business book in 8 weeks. But you know what? Don't take my word for it. Take it from a few of my authors, like Lori.
And I went from having an idea and a possibility to actually getting my book published.
Or Catherine.
Thank you for making my mom #1 best-selling author.
Or Mary Alice.
What he got done for me in 3 days regarding my book launch, unmanageable.
John Cody.
I've worked with Mario over the phone and online, and he's been very helpful.
And we are back with the imperfect action round. Matt, are you ready to take imperfect action?
I am very ready.
60-second or less. Rapid fire answers. I have 3 questions. The first one is, what is the fastest path to the profits?
Straightforward. Don't overthink it. Take imperfect action.
I like that. Number 2, what is the biggest problem you see your prospects making and the fastest way for them to fix it?
Biggest problem is getting in their own way, right? We are our biggest obstacle. So the best way to solve it is focus on yourself first, right? Jim Rohn said, put more effort into yourself than you do on your business. That's really how you make the biggest strides.
I like that. And I was going to make a joke, but how dare they not know their own blind spots and fix them? That's really good, though, because I think so many people, I know with me, when I went through some training, like I said, the leadership stuff years ago, one of the exercises we did was there was these little beans, and it's like you only had 2 or 3 of them, and there was 18, 20 people in the room, and it's like, well, who would you give it to? Basically, whoever, if you have a bean, you live, and if you don't, you die. So this was pretty extreme, like,
oh, it's very extreme.
Deciding the fate of like the room. It's like, do you get one? Do I get one? And it was interesting because there was the people who were like so giving.
Yeah.
They didn't keep one for themselves. And then there's the people who were not giving at all and they just hoarded everything, both of which are bad. And I remember because I was like, I have a servant's heart. I love serving. I help everyone. Yeah, but I was killing myself in the process, literally in that exercise. Exactly. And then my entire life, it was like, who's taking the hit? Why don't I feel like I'm worthy enough to do this, that, the other thing? Well, because everyone else is getting the benefit and I'm not.
That is
the airplane mask.
That's mostly what my moms deal with. Like the moms that I work with, that's like the number one thing.
Yeah, the airplane mask. This is the one everyone talks about. If the plane, never mind. You can't help others if you can't help yourself. You can't save others if you can't save yourself. And I don't believe you can do any of this on your own either completely. I know some people say they've pushed through this, that I'm self-made. There's always someone somewhere that at least encouraged you, even if it was once, to say you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I was making a joke. I asked the question, the second question. There we are. I was like, where are we going with this? And I'm totally fine. And that's why I said earlier, just say whatever you want. Because while I do have a show flow, I kind of throw it out the door most of the time.
I love it.
I want the
truth,
with the flow. Not just whatever that was.
Yeah.
But number 2.
Robot.
What is... No, the money, the biggest problem we just addressed.
Yeah, number 3.
There we go. What is the best way to maximize customer lifetime value?
ask them good questions, really listen, and care for them in a massive way. Like when people, it's the old saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I just care massively about all of the people that I have in my program, right? Everybody that I've ever served, like I just care wholeheartedly for them. And when you do that, there's just a level of authenticity, and people know, they can feel it, they can tell, right? And I think a lot of, in the world that we live in, there's so much emphasis on, just get more clients, get more leads, get more all this, that, and the other thing. And the reality is that we need to stop, and we need to just start building more relationships and start caring a ton about each other, because that's gonna maximize the lifetime value of a client, because you're putting more value back into them, right? And it's going to return. It's really just, it's right. Exactly.
Love that answer. Well, that was the 3 questions. There's a few more, and it deals with books. I love helping entrepreneurs take their expertise and put it into a book to generate leads and get their message out and all of that. I also love reading books, as I'm sure you do. What books have helped your business the most over the years, and why?
I love the 4 Agreements. That's one of my favorite books ever. Yeah. You had mentioned a book that helped you with your money a lot. There's 2 books that have helped me with money a lot, which one of them was Dollars Flow to Me Easily, I believe is the name of it. And then another one, game changer, it's called The Abundance Book. Really, really awesome book. And another one called The $100 Million Offers. Highly recommend that to all entrepreneurs out there, because if you can create an amazing offer that sells itself, that's going to make things blow up in a massive way for you.
Great recommendations. Thank you for those. And thank you for everything you've been sharing. Where would you like people to learn more about you?
So you can totally reach out to me on socials, right? I'm on LinkedIn, Matt Travis on LinkedIn, on Instagram, at The Potential You, and it's all one word, The Potential, and it's the letter U. Same on Facebook. You can even friend me on Facebook. I just love chatting with people. Like, I love talking to people.
Oh,
and
you do you?
Yeah.
Would have never known.
And I feel like a lot of times they don't feel like they can access people. And people message me all the time and ask me questions, and I answer them because I want to help you get unstuck. So if you're stuck right now, I want to help you get unstuck. And, I have a lot of free, massive value that I can give to you to get you where you want to go. And then we can talk about how to best serve you and get you going in the right direction for you.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for everything again. And this has been a lot of fun for me, and I definitely learned some stuff myself. So thank you again for sharing.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me on. It was awesome.
All right, Expert Authority World, we have another great episode here today. I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.